So today I thought I'd talk about a couple of books from TKO Studios. If you haven't heard of TKO before, they're a relatively new publisher. They released their first wave of books in late 2018, and since then they've also done a second and third wave. They do things a little bit differently than other publishers though. Instead of releasing a series one issue at a time, they will wait for the entire story to be completed, and for them that's typically 6 issues, and once it's completed they will release it along with the other books that have been completed as well. They will release them all at once in digital and in print. And with print, you get a couple of different formats. You can have trade paperbacks like what I have here, or you can get them in 6 single issues that come in a nice box that will look good on your bookcase. The thing I really like about what TKO is doing though is they print their books oversized, whether it's trade paperback or single issues. So for example, here's your standard trade paperback. And you can also compare this with an omnibus. So you can see that they're printing their books at omnibus size, which is awesome. I love that because I've always felt that comic books should be printed on much bigger paper, especially today when the art is so intricate and so detailed. You really need that bigger page size to just take in and experience and appreciate the artwork. And I love that you don't have to pay, with TKO, you don't have to pay a premium hardcover price to get the art in oversized pages. That's just the way they print them. And honestly, it's a fair value, right? $19.99 US. I think that's a decent price to pay for good story, good art at oversized dimensions. So with that said, let's dive right in. So let's take a look at our first book, Sara, written by Garth Ennis, art by Steve Epting, and colors by Elizabeth Breitweiser. The story of this book, it takes place in World War II during the siege of Leningrad. And it's about a team of Russian snipers. The team is composed entirely of women, and they are tasked with holding the line and keeping the German troops back. And so we follow this team as they kind of learn to bond with one another and navigate the stresses and the complexities of fighting in a war, right? As well as when they get back to their barracks, they're also dealing with the political pressure, the internal politics and propaganda that's being thrust on them from their side. And we see all this unfold through the eyes of Sara, who is the most proficient sniper on the team. She's cool, she's unflappable, she's got ice in her veins. And the story kind of flashes back and forth between her past and her present, and we get a chance to see how she becomes the way she is. That's about as far as I want to go with explaining the story, because I don't want to put any spoilers in there. It's actually a pretty straightforward story. If you are a fan of Garth Ennis, if you've read Preacher and The Boys, Hellblazer, Punisher, you know that one of Garth Ennis's calling cards is his dark humor and his kind of bizarre and violent situations that he gets his characters into. This is quite a bit different than that. This is Garth Ennis at his most restrained. It's a very straightforward war story. And I really enjoyed it. I think a lot of times Garth Ennis's his skills as a writer, sometimes they get overshadowed by the perception that he's that guy with the dark humor, that guy with the violent stories. And I like that he doesn't have any of that here. I think this really allows his qualities as a character writer and a master of pacing in comic books. This really allows those qualities to shine because he is an incredible character writer. When I read Preacher, when I read Punisher, the things I liked about it were his characterizations and how he handled the relationships between the characters in his stories. And that's what you get here. It's just pure master storytelling. And then in terms of the art, I mean, I am a huge fan of Steve Epting. I love all of his work, and this is some of the best work that I've seen from him. It's so solid and so good. And Elizabeth Breitweiser, her colors really complement the art and the story, because this story takes place, as you can see as I flip through the pages, it's taking place in, in the winter, where it's just cold and frigid. And like, look at this page, the way she colors this page, it just feels so damn cold. So her colors are really doing a great job at conveying atmosphere and mood and just the overall environment that this story is taking place in. So yeah, Garth Ennis, Steve Epting, Elizabeth Breitweiser on Sara. These are three creators who are incredibly talented and just at the top of their game, putting out some of their best work here. So if you are interested in these kind of stories, definitely give Sara a try. So the next book we're going to take a look at is Sentient, written by Jeff Lemire and art by Gabriel Walta. This book was actually nominated for an Eisner Award in 2020, so comes highly recommended. And the story of this book is about, so it's in the far future, and Earth is becoming uninhabitable. It's only got about 10 years left before it just can no longer sustain life. So people are leaving this planet, leaving Earth, and they're heading towards a new planet where a colony has been established. So in this book, we're following one of these colony ships, the USS Montgomery. And the crew have all their families, the crew and their families are on board. They're making their way to the new planet. And they're coming to a point where it's just going to be communications blackout for a year, because they'll be too far from Earth and not close enough to the new planet. So it'll just be them in the void of space, radio silence. And tragedy strikes, leaving just the kids behind. And the artificial intelligence that's running the ship, it's been tasked, its final order given to it by the crew is to protect the kids, get them safely to the new colony. So the story is about how these kids, they've just suffered an unimaginable tragedy, and like these are kids, like they range from like I think 5 years old to preteens, and they have to just pull themselves up and figure out how to run this ship, because while the AI can do a lot, it still needs a crew. So these kids are forced to grow up a bit, stay strong, do what they need to do to survive. And similarly, the artificial intelligence is having to do something, grow beyond its programming. Because taking care of kids, nurturing them, protecting them, that's completely beyond the parameters of its programming. But that was the last order given to it, and it has no choice but to implement that order. So it's about these kids and this ship's computer, and they're learning to depend on each other, learning to trust each other, and get through the journey to the new world where the kids can join the rest of humanity. So Jeff Lemire's story, I haven't read a lot of Jeff Lemire's work. I have read Black Hammer, I've read Trillium and Essex County, but I haven't touched Sweet Tooth or Animal Man or all the other stuff he's written. One thing I have noticed from what I have read is his stories always have this kind of melancholic tone. There's like an undertone of sadness to his books. There's something tragic in them, but at the same time, there's so much humanity as well. And it's just it's the way he mixes the two and blends them together to create a story that just really tugs on your heartstrings. And for me, this is what I experienced reading this book. It's so tense, and you really feel for these characters, and you're rooting for them, but at the same time you feel so bad for them too. And then the art, Gabriel Walta's art, I really love the kind of art direction, the design sense he went with. Everything that he draws in this book, the ships, the interiors, the uniforms, the machines, they all have this very utilitarian, Spartan, patchwork feel to it, kind of like science fiction movies from the late 70s and the early 80s,
like Star Wars and Aliens. You know, like how all the ships is just like it's just panels, right? Panels and doohickeys, but a very gritty look to it all. And yeah, I loved how he just designed this world, and he's an incredible storyteller as well with his paneling and his layouts. So that combined with a story from Jeff Lemire, I mean, this is really good, and another book I definitely recommend checking out. So that's it for our look at Sara and Sentient, both from TKO Studios. If I had to only choose one, I'd probably go with Sara, but that's just because I'm a huge fan of Steve Epting's artwork. Honestly, you couldn't go wrong with either book. Sentient nominated for an Eisner Award, so yeah, both books are great. Definitely check them out if you get the chance. You can find them at your local comic book store, regular bookstores, or on Amazon. And that's it. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will talk to you next time.